The Terps have one of the biggest weekends in a long time.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, video content creator for 247 Sports and InsideMarylandSports.com, and host of Locked On Terps for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Maryland football has one of its biggest weekends in the Coach Locksley era. We have a humongous weekend that could absolutely decide what our 2025 class looks like, and it's going to be a humongous indicator how our future is going to look like this recruiting weekend at this official visit for the Maryland Terrapins. There is plenty of players to get excited about. There's plenty of really high-level players that are coming, a couple guys that are committed, a couple guys that we know that we really want, some really high-level types of guys that are coming to Maryland this weekend in the 2025 class that we absolutely probably need to land in is all really good players that if we don't do this weekend the right way, the 2025 class might be a huge disappointment. And these weekends matter. After you come away after these weekends, you usually get a couple of commits. And if the recruit likes the weekend, how it goes, and the recruit likes the coaching staff, and the recruit really meshes well with the program, and a lot of these guys are DMV local kids, and they want to stay home, then they'll commit. There'll be no ands, buts, and whatever about it. They'll decide to be a Maryland Terrapin. You know, today's world, there's a lot of decommitment and all these different things. But in general, if someone commits to your program, it's probably going to be a good thing. And more times than not, they're going to end up being on your team. So if this weekend goes right, Maryland's recruiting can take the next step. And that's all I've been talking about over, I feel like the last couple of days, but the last couple of weeks. If Maryland recruiting can take just a touch up in landing a little bit more high-level guys in the DMV, more four-star types of players, then this Maryland football program can take another step and not max out where they currently are, which some people think that this Maryland program is maxed out. And I even have question marks about it. I still have question marks. Can we take another step? Do we have 9 wins in us? Do we have a 10-win season in us? What exactly can we accomplish? What is our ceiling under Coach Locksley? I definitely still have question marks about that. But if this Maryland team can have a good recruiting weekend this weekend, when I'm about to get into some of the players that are coming, then it's going to be a huge point in the right direction for this Maryland football team, for Coach Locksley, if this weekend goes the right way. And a lot of people think it's the biggest recruiting weekend ever for Maryland football. So a couple of names on the list that you guys need to be aware of. I'll try to get to just about everybody. Of course, Iverson Howard just committed to the Terps, who's a 4-star in terms of the composite rankings. 247 is a 4-star. On3 actually has him as a 4-star as well. ESPN has him as a 4-star. And Rivals has him as a 3-star. So he's right there, kind of headed in that 4-3-star. I've talked about him the other day, I think it was yesterday actually, and how big of a commitment he was, and how he has a chance to be, or it was 2 days ago, and how he has a chance to be a really good player, a perfect fit. I think we do a lot of good things with our running backs, and I think he fits really well. He's one of the guys that are going to be there, and you want to make sure that you keep a guy like that, a 4-star running back that has a bright future. You definitely want a guy like that to stay. So we have Iverson Howard coming. Now, the big name, the huge name that is coming is Malik Washington. I did a whole segment about him yesterday. It's the first one up, and there's a reason I talked about him first yesterday. It's a reason I've talked about him multiple times because he's priority number one in the Terps recruiting class, and he has a potential to be the future of Maryland football at the most important position at the quarterback spot. And everybody knows high school, college, NFL, whatever it may be. If you don't have a quarterback, then your team probably isn't going to be that good. It's just not. That's just the way football works. If you don't have a quarterback, you're probably not going to be good. And so one of the biggest reasons this weekend is huge is because of Malik Washington. He just did a really good job at the Elite 11 with all the top quarterbacks. And so now he's up at Maryland. He's a DMV kid. He goes to Spalding in the DMV. And so I'm looking at it and I'm saying this weekend is humongous. And a big part of it is because of Malik Washington. He got crystal ball to Maryland. And I think that Maryland is clearly the favorite right now. But a good or bad recruiting weekend can either make him commit to the Terps, or a bad recruiting weekend can probably make him go maybe in another direction, go for somewhere else. So I think this weekend is huge for that. It's humongous for Malik Washington. This kid has a chance to be the future of Maryland football. And this is probably the one player that I would say is the biggest reason why this is probably one of the biggest weekends we've had in a while. And it's not only Malik Washington. There's a lot of other really good players that these are the type of guys that fill out your class. Starting with Blake Woodby. He's a guy that was originally committed to Ohio State, actually, but then decided to decommit, and he's a 4-star on every single website. Everywhere you look, 247 has him as a 4-star. They have him rated as the 127th ranked player. ESPN has him as a 4-star. Rivals has a 4. Everyone has him as a 4-star. Right now, Auburn is the favorite to land Blake Woodby, but we don't really know yet. And a big weekend from recruiting, we could have potential to get in on Blake Woodby, which we absolutely want. This is a kid that we really want at the cornerback position. We're pretty deep. We've recruited cornerback really well, but Blake Woodby is a big reason why this is a big recruiting weekend. Like I said, was committed to Ohio State. I don't know exactly what went down with him, but it does claim that Auburn's the favorite right now. I don't know how much truth that is to it. It says 80% Auburn on 3. So I don't know exactly, but I do know that he'll be at Maryland this weekend. And so he's a big reason why it's huge recruiting week. Then there's a couple other guys as well that are really highly rated. 4 stars on 247 and all these different websites that we absolutely need. I've talked about on the offensive line. We really need high-level offensive linemen. And Jalen Gilchrist is a guy that is rated as a 4-star that we could really use. He is from Virginia. Right now, South Carolina is the favorite, but he's a 4-star on every single website, and he's another guy. I've talked about it. To take the next level, to be able to compete in the Big Ten at a higher level, we have to recruit offensive line better. And getting a kid like this who's ranked really highly nationally on basically every single website, rated in the top 100 besides Rivals. And so if you can get a guy like this on the interior offensive line, you could have a really good player in the future. And so he's another guy. Here's a couple other names that you guys need to be aware of on the Maryland recruiting list that is there this weekend. Some of the other 4-stars. There's this kid, Messiah Delhomme, who's a 4-star on every single website. Right now, Ohio State is the favorite, but who knows? He's listed as an athlete, so he can do different things. And he's also a really good player from Virginia. And there's some other guys that we really need to keep an eye out. And Malik Washington's actual high school teammate and D lineman Delmar White, he's another guy to keep an eye out. That is Malik Washington's teammate that has potential maybe to play some high-level stuff. And then Jeffrey Eggsonor is also another kid that is crystal ball to Penn State right now, but he's another guy that I know Maryland is high on and really likes. He's a 4-star on ESPN and 247. So there's a lot of different guys in this class, and that doesn't even cover everybody. There's a couple more players. 4-star Zamir Smith from North Carolina is another kid that looks like Alabama is huge on this kid, but it does not take away that a huge official visit can switch everything. So those are the couple guys. So you guys understand it. It's a lot of really talented players. And if the Terps want to take the next step as a program, if the Terps want to be special, it's going to come down to this weekend. Because let me tell you, if somehow the staff messes this weekend up and it doesn't go the right way, and we can't really get a lot of these high-level players, and we're just going to be stuck where we always are. At a certain point, you're going to have to land some of these big-time 4-star players if you want to take the next step as a program. That's just what it is. That's just how it's going to be. That's just how it's going to happen. That's how you're going to take on another level. And if you don't, you're kind of going to be stuck where you are. Kind of like a 7-win, 8-win team. Maybe some years you win 6. Maybe you have a down year. Maybe you have an up there. But it's never going to be consistent. And yeah, maybe we'll go to a small type of bowl game. But I want to take the next step as a program. And I think Coach Loxley has that potential. And this weekend is a huge start to it. It's a huge start to the Terps being able to take another step that we haven't quite seen them take. And so I'll be interested to see what happens, who the Maryland's going to be able to land. It's not going to be easy. But another point is when you have all these guys at one spot, it does create some type of chemistry, and a lot of DMV kids who eventually can come together and be like, hey, this might be the spot for me. And then it's a ripple effect, it's a domino effect that can happen, and it can rub off on some of the other guys. So I'll be interested to see how it goes. I can't wait to give updates, but this weekend is humongous for Maryland football and Coach Loxley. Maryland football just landed another commit yesterday. Let's talk about him. I'll talk about that after this ad from the Gametime app. Have you ever wanted to go to a game at the last minute like a Maryland Terrapins game, but finding tickets is hard? I've been there before. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. It's a place to find last-minute seats and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So Maryland just staying hot on the recruiting trail, which I hope is an indicator of how things go this weekend for Maryland football. I hope we are able to stay hot on the recruiting trail, but we just landed another commitment in Nasir Taylor. He goes to Rock Creek Christian Academy. He's from Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and he's a 2025. And so an interesting type of commitment, an interesting type of kid. I've heard different things about this kid. A lot of people are pretty high on him. I think he has a chance to be a pretty solid type of player. He definitely has kind of an interesting frame. He's at 6'2", 250. So he's not like the tallest kid ever. He's kind of like I don't know. He's listed as a D tackle in some places. I don't know. I feel like he can move outside at times. It kind of feels like a hybrid. I honestly don't know exactly how big he is because 247 has him at 250, but Rivals has him at 6'3", 275. So it's kind of interesting to see the difference. But on film, he looks like a pretty big kid. He's powerful for sure. One thing, he's powerful. When I watch him, he pushes guys back. He pushes their guards, tackles, centers, whatever it is. He pushes them back into the quarterback. So kid's powerful. Kid's got strength. That isn't going to be easy to always translate to the college level just because when you're going against Big Ten offensive linemen, these guys are different. I don't know where they make some of these guys. I don't know what these kids are eating. I don't know how these kids are so big, strong, and athletic. but it's hard sometimes to translate strength. But I'm sure Nasir Taylor can do it. But he looks like a pretty good prospect to me. And so it's interesting to see kind of how his recruiting went, because it's definitely kind of weird on his side, because Rivals basically everywhere has him as a 3-star. But this kid kind of was under recruited for a little bit. Like 247 didn't have stars on him for a while, and now he's kind of jumped up onto the 247 scene. And so he has interesting offers I'm about to tell you in a second, but he's ranked as the 172th ranked defensive lineman. He's ranked as a 49th ranked player in Maryland, and he's probably an underrated player in the class of 2025, and another underrated ad by Coach Loxley, which is important for Maryland to stay hot on the recruiting trail. They continue to add kids, and we need defensive linemen. We need defensive tackles. I don't know about the depth this year along the defensive line, and Tommy Aking-Basote and Jordan Phillips aren't with Maryland aren't there forever. And so I'm looking at it and I'm saying we need new guys in the defensive line group. We're going to need an influx of talent. And sure, you can use a portal some with that, but you don't just want to use a portal. You want to develop some of your own. And he has a chance to develop a little bit, and he's going to be a player, I think, in a couple of years, at the very least, a rotational player for Coach Loxley, which is important. We need guys that can rotate in and out, but he has a chance to be probably a starter down the road, because we just haven't recruited defensive tackle, defensive line, anywhere on that spot. I wouldn't say we've recruited that spot at a high level. Edge, maybe we have recruited at a better level. Definitely more guys that we've gotten at edge rusher type of thing. But in terms of guys up the middle that can put pressure up the middle on quarterbacks and all these different things, I wouldn't say that we have committed to that in terms of recruiting. We've done a good job in the portal, getting a guy like Jordan Phillips and things like that. But I wouldn't say that as recruiting that it's a position group that we've been focused on recruiting. But we do get this kid. So I think it's when we do recruit it, it's nice to get a guy that they clearly like in Nasir Taylor. Some other really interesting offers. Offers lists always they're always just kind of interesting. If you look at somebody's offers list, it's always interesting because it does tell you a story more than the stars. But his offer list is really it's weird. To be completely honest, it's a little bit weird. He's offered from Wisconsin, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Temple, Syracuse, Rutgers. None of that seems too weird to me. Pittsburgh. But then he gets into some really, really good programs like Georgia, Notre Dame, Penn State. And so it's like some really good teams wanted this kid, which is important. And I'm sitting here watching his film a little bit before this, and I'm saying, wow, okay, this kid, he can definitely move for his size. Like this kid, I don't know whether he's 270, 250. I don't know what he is, but he can move, and he looks like pretty big. I would guess probably somewhere in between that at about I would say probably 260-ish, but that means we can add more to his frame, which is always important. Whenever you can add more to somebody's frame, it's always cool to do so in college football. Just about everybody's going to add more weight to their frame, but you don't want a guy that's like already is kind of maxed out in that stuff. But even though he's a big guy, kid can move for sure. Kid can definitely move. Kid is powerful, like I said, but he also has some really good moves. Like I see him using different moves on his film. I see him doing different things, but he can move. He can move to edge. And so it's interesting. That's what I'm saying. He's got versatility. I don't know exactly kind of where you kind of do with this kid. Do you put on a bunch of weight on him and make him a D tackle? Or do you keep him or you make him lose a couple pounds and put him on the edge? I think you probably lean towards putting him up the middle and putting a bunch of weight on him. Same time, what do I know? But it's good to have a guy that's versatile and can do different things, because I think that's important when looking at guys on the defensive line, so they can really just do what's best for them. But when you watch the film, the kid just makes plays. Like kid's like a pretty good athlete. I can see how, like, if you watch his film, it kind of jumps out and so you're like, oh, wait, who's this guy? Like there's a play where he gets really low and has really good bend. There's plays on read options where he just blows it up in the backfield. There's just some plays where you look at this kid and you're like, why was this kid underrated like this for a while? It's interesting. I think he's going to be a pretty good player. Watch the film. He's pretty underrated for sure. I think he's going to be a good player, versatile type of player, other really interesting offers, and Maryland recruiting stays hot, and hopefully we can continue that on the official visit this weekend as well. Let's talk about the Terps' identity. I don't think it's something that people are talking about enough. Maryland's identity isn't quite, we don't really know what it is yet. I'll talk about that right now. So in sports, it's important to have an identity as a team, as players. It's important to know what you're supposed to bring to your team, know your role. And as a team, it's important to have an identity. It's important to have somewhere where you know that when things aren't going well, you can go to, or when things are going well, it's probably because you're sticking to your identity. You're doing the things that you normally do well, and you're doing it at a high level. For example, when I think about some football teams, they run the ball at a really high level, and they're going to pound the rock. Think about Michigan last year. Perfect example of that. They're really good up front. They're not going to throw the ball a ton. They're not going to put the ball in harm's way. Even though they had a first-round quarterback, they're going to run the ball with their couple of backs, Blake Corum and Edwards, and they're just going to pound the rock. And they're going to do that at a really high level, and that's their identity. But Maryland, on the other side, led the Big Ten in passing attempts, and they were going to chuck the ball all over the place with Talia, which I'm not saying is good or bad. When I think about some of those teams, like when I think about Washington, I think their identity, we're going to throw to Dunze, and we're going to let Michael Penix chuck it all over the place. When I think about some of Bama's older teams, Nick Saban was going to run the ball. Some of Nick Saban's newer teams, when Tua was a quarterback, we can just throw the ball. We got Jalen Waddle and we got Jerry Jeudy and all these different things. But when I going back to Maryland, my point is, I don't know what Maryland's identity is. Last year, I would have said it's throwing the ball on football and then throwing the ball on offense, and then defense, it's creating turnovers and hopefully not giving up the big play. But this year, I don't know what it is. I don't know what our identity is. I want to say, okay, our offense last year, the identity was throwing the football, but with the new quarterback, losing Jayshon Jones, losing Corey Dyches, sure, we still have a lot of receiving talent, but is that going to be our identity? I don't know. I can't say it is going to be. It's going to be running the ball with Roman Hemby and maybe stronger defensive line play, create pressure, play soft coverage. Is that going to be it? Is our defensive line going to be able to do that? Is our running game going to be able to do that? Is our offensive line going to be able to do that? I don't know. And so when I think about what Maryland football's identity is this year and what we're going to tip our hat on and at the end of the day be like, that's what we do really well, I don't know. Besides, I want to say besides maybe your defensive line group, but I don't know. Our safety plays good, but our cornerbacks are completely new. And so the secondary is still a question mark. And the linebacker room, sure, it's good. It's solid, but I wouldn't say it's special enough to be like, that's our identity. And our defensive line group is it good? Everyone's back basically, but are those guys elite? And then you think about wide receiver. Okay, we're good, but do we have the depth? And then at quarterback, we have a new quarterback, and it's like Roman Hemby's a really good player, but is our offensive line going to be good enough? I don't know what this identity is of our team yet. I don't know quite. I can give you the strengths of kind of the players, but there's always kind of this other thing. And you remember, football's a 3-stage type of thing. You got to block well. You got to have receivers that can catch the ball. You can have running back that can run the ball. When you do these different things, when you think of passing the ball, think about it. Okay, we have Caden Prather and Ty Felton, two of the best receivers in the conference, but it's like if our quarterback isn't good enough to get it and our offensive line isn't good enough to block, then it doesn't really matter. And so when I think about our identity, I don't know what it is right now. I don't know what I'm going to say we're going to hang our hat on. And it could be completely different than last year. It could be completely different. It might not just be throwing the football everywhere. It might be maybe a short passing game and we get the ball out quick and we do more vanilla stuff, more easy stuff for our quarterback. I don't know. It's a question mark for me. I don't know exactly what our identity is going to be next year. I really don't. But I think it's important to talk about, and I think it's important to question it, and I think it's important to kind of think, what is our identity going to be next year? I think it's a topic of conversation that's important. I think we're going to keep talking about it. What do the Terps do well? What do the Terps do at a high level? I don't know yet. Let me know what you guys think our identity is. It's hard to have an identity already, but you don't have to. That's the part about it. It can get developed, but you do want something later on the season that you say, we do that really well. And when things are bad, we're going to stick to that. We're going to get back to doing that and hopefully flip it upside down. But that's all we have for today. Huge recruiting weekend this weekend. We'll see how it goes. But thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.